Mainstream Mental Health Radio with Dr. John Huber.
What do you think you are, crazy or something? Well, you're not.
We're on a mission from God.
News, issues revolving around mental health. Dr. John Huber, a mental health professional for over 20 years, the chairman for Mainstream Mental Health, a clinical forensic psychologist, and a psychology professor at Texas State University. Breaking the silence of mental health, one day at a time, discussing the human condition, providing a sounding board for mental health issues, and making mental health mainstream.
You got a gift, my friend.
Now it's time for Mainstream Mental Health Radio.
Let the healing begin.
With Dr. John Huber.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Mainstream Mental Health Radio Show. I'm your host, Dr. John Huber. Thank you very much for listening. We really do appreciate it. We have another fantastic show for you today. And remember to check out our website at mainstreammentalhealth.org and let your friends know about our show. You can always listen to us on our podcast, on iTunes, and Google us if you want at Mainstream Mental Health Radio, and there's other alternatives out there if you don't have iTunes available for you today. All right, let's look at what's been happening in the news, and then we have a very special guest coming up that just floors me that he even takes the time of day to talk with me, and then let alone lets me share it with all you listeners out there. He's an amazing person. Anyway, headlines. What's been going on this week? Well, Oklahoma plans now to slash mental health and drug abuse programs, and not just for one particular group, but for all of their outpatient mental health and substance abuse programs. Almost 190,000 Oklahoma residents. It's 189,000 actually, and this includes people who are addicted to opioids, alcoholics, mental health issues, schizophrenia, depression, and they plan on to eliminate this on November 1st because of state budget cuts. The state commissioner, Terry White of the Oklahoma Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services, said that they will have to drastically cut its budget for the fiscal year that begins July 1st if state lawmakers don't fill in a $215 million hole in the state budget. And the hole was created when the state Supreme Court overturned a $1.50 per pack cigarette tax that was supposed to help fund the agency. And, you know, it's interesting that, you know, the state goes through and the lawmakers make a law and then the Supreme Court comes back and overturns something. Why should they do that? You know, I'm not an attorney. My understanding is that we should be looking at the constitutionality of these laws when it gets turned over by the Supreme Court. I don't know what they finally made that decision on, but I know it's hurting some of the most in need and the least able to defend themselves, least able to stand up for their own rights. All right, and one of the topics we've talked about here for a significant amount of time at Mainstream Mental Health Radio is social media. And again, more research has come up out of Mashable.com. We have a study that suggests that excessive social media use during a disaster can actually cause more harm to your mental health. And we've definitely had a lot of disasters here in the United States in the recent past. We start with Harvey, then we go to Irma, and then Maria, and then we have Mandalay Bay. And that's not even mentioning the forest fires in Montana and California that are just devastating families and homes. And the study suggests that when people get updates from these major crises from unofficial channels, like some of these fake news sites that are posting random social media accounts, they focus on the most extreme and most exposed, and they provide conflicting information. And they also compound that with experiences from individuals who are having the most severe situation because they want more people to come to their social media site to boost their ratings. And that, it seems, creates the most psychological distress in those people who are utilizing those media outlets to deal with what's going on. The study was published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Science, and they certified surveyed 3,890 students whose campuses were locked down after a shooter fired on people. Since it's difficult, if not impossible, to begin a scientific study during life-threatening disaster or crisis, they had to ask them post hoc after they actually experienced them. And this was after about a week past the incident, and they sat down and looked at the Twitter data post-shooting, and they targeted a 5-hour block of that. And what they found out was that when you get your media outlet for crises information, that it causes the most psychological trauma by getting it from those social outlets that aren't necessarily reporting true facts, but are focusing on emotional turmoil. Leading us to emotional turmoil, emotional triggers that are coming this way here. Just this month, as we approach Halloween, American schools now are cracking down on insensitive Halloween costumes. You know, you have to ask yourself, is your Halloween costume a soft trigger for someone else's emotional turmoil? So is your costume offensive? As we gear up for Halloween, young people are finding that their outfit choices are becoming increasingly limited, as institutions from grade schools all the way up to major universities are clamping down on these controversial costumes. Whether it's a creepy clown or Caitlyn Jenner outfit, schools across the country have, just in recent years, and this year included, issued everything from warnings to bans on specific costumes that could be construed as inappropriate, politically incorrect, or culturally insensitive. So if you want to follow up on this story, you can check that out at foxnews.com and search for American Schools Crackdown on Insensitive Halloween Costumes. So as we look at those and you go back, hopefully you can get to read that story, you know, you have to ask yourself a few things. What do you think Halloween costumes actually reveal about yourself? You know, are you playing an alter ego? Are you trying to tell people this is who you want to be? You know, you should start thinking about that when you go and pick your costumes, how you want the world to see you and what they're really getting psychologically from your costume. I think that would be a good exercise for anybody at this point. All right, just a reminder, you're listening to Mainstream Mental Health Radio Show. My name is Dr. John Huber, and as a parent, I know that there's a lot of things that people go through. I have nephews, nieces with children, godchildren with children, and some of them are just starting out, and they've got one or two, or they've got one and they're starting another one, and they're getting these kids. And we always worry about the mother, you know, postpartum depression in mom, depression in general in mom, you know, all the things that can go wrong and cause stress for mom's life. And a lot of times the fathers, the dads are left out. I was one of them. You know, people don't understand that just because you're not carrying the baby doesn't mean that you're not emotionally carrying the burdens with that. And in recent years, there have been a growing body of research and increasing visibility of dads that have given risen to the idea that you don't have to give actual birth to the baby to develop postpartum depression. Studies suggest that the phenomenon may occur anywhere from 7 to 10% of new fathers. And, you know, when you look at it, it's only in about 12% of new mothers that get postpartum depression. That's pretty significant number of men who have it. I think that since it's approaching more than half of the women that have postpartum depression, I think that it's very significant. We should be looking at that. I know stress in general can be a big trigger. Stress causes your body to not be able to function normally, including not having the ability to retain information in your memory, to recall memory issues, and that can cause you even more stress. So whether you have full-blown postpartum depression, the stress is going to affect you regardless of whether you are the mother or the father. And look out, grandparents, it may be affecting you and you don't even really know it. So just watch out. If you look at this study, University of Southern California has found that a link between depression and sagging testosterone levels actually hits new dads as well. So we know there's a physiological component involved in this as well. And it's not just the women who are having issues related to mental health and having children. The interesting thing of that Southern California study also says that fathers who have a high testosterone level as new dads, actually that high testosterone tends to protect them against depression in fathers. So that's interesting, but at the same time, that high testosterone rate actually predicts depression in the mother. So male parents who have high testosterone, their wives are at an increased risk for depression in new moms. So it may be, and the study doesn't prove that, it doesn't even suggest that, but it may be that the fathers who are taking on part of the emotional burden may be actually protecting some of these women from having postpartum depression. So it'd be really interesting in future research to follow up on that. All right. One more time, you're listening to Mainstream Mental Health Radio Show. My name is Dr. John Huber, and today we have an amazing guest. He has an amazing life and very much worth reviewing and looking over. And when I met this man, I found out that he had a lot of underlying issues that the rest of the world really didn't know anything about while he was going through them, including a history of child abuse by his father. And then once he became one of the best athletes in the world, he was dealing with alcoholism and depression associated with that. And as one of the world's best athletes, it's kind of hard to imagine having a chemical problem, a chemical dependency problem. But the reality of it is drugs and alcohol don't care who you are. And his ability to overcome that and now have, again, continued success as he has his own XM radio show on Monday nights and Friday nights, and he is able to help a lot of his friends and peers, as you're going to hear from the show. But I would like to introduce to you and let him tell his own story, Mr. Gerry Cooney. Just an amazing athlete and boxer, and I think you're going to enjoy hearing our discussion.
Hello, Gerry. How are you?
Hey, great, Doctor. I'm doing great. I just been on the road for a little while, but I'm grateful to be on with you this morning.
Well, Gerry, you know, as a fan of now today more martial arts, because I think we don't have people like you in the fight scene that have longevity and strong, healthy careers and appear, at least outwardly, to be strong, driven individuals. I watch a little more of the MMA stuff than I do the fight scene anymore. But back in the day, you know, you were amazing. I loved watching you. And then as I read your history, I find out, you know, that you were pushed or some say maybe even possibly, you know, to an abuse level by family members to become excellent through boxing. What could you give me a synopsis of your upbringing and story and why some people would say that?
Well, sure. And listen, I beg to differ with you about the fight game. The fight game is very exciting today. I am on SiriusXM channel 93 every Monday, every Friday.
All right.
6 to 8 p.m. Eastern time. It's a great game. Listen, yes, I was brought up, I learned a lot of negativity. I was no good, a failure, not going to amount to anything. Don't trust nobody. Don't tell nobody your business. That's what my father gave me because that's what was given to him. And unfortunately, he never got any help. So, I mean, obviously, I could have ran with that or I could have, changed it. And I have children today who have never seen me drink and never seen me abusive or help them to grow. And so I had this built-in sabotage mechanism unbeknownst to me from growing up in that household.
Wow.
And as I became a fighter, I wanted so bad to prove my father wrong. And then in 1981, I knocked out Kenny Norton in 54 seconds of the first round. And you'd think that night I would say, well, I got to get a great trainer, and now I'm going to fight for the heavyweight championship of the world. But that's not what happened to me that night. I started messing around, drinking a lot. The fight was on, the fight was off, and I got distracted. And today I take myself around a lot and speak to kids about getting up to the plate and getting the information to help changing the course of your life.
And that I remember, the Kenny Norton fight, and it was amazing. And, I'd never seen anything like that, in less than a minute. And of course, we had Tyson a few years later who started changing that experience for us. But, the whole, story, dependence on chemicals, on the alcohol, and reflecting back on your, now you can look at it and see what was going on. You were having to prove to yourself because you'd been told that you weren't going to be successful.
Right.
That's a hard thing. I see it with kids in my practice all the time. I see it with adults who've had to live to that, and successful adults. I mean, I would say by any measure, you are a successful fighter, and, we'll go down in history, and we'll be watching you and studying your moves forever. But not feeling that internally, it took, obviously you've done a lot and you've moved on. A lot of people aren't able to do that. How do you think you did that?
Well, listen, that night when I fought Kenny Norton, I could have beat anybody in the world. I was so fine-tuned, in shape, ready,
yes, sir,
conditioned, mental, physical. After that fight, I did get distracted. I did, and the bad part about being me was that everybody said, here's my house, take my plane, take this, have this, go here. I remember getting escorts in Louisiana, during Mardi Gras by, great people. And it is very distracting. It's hard to say no. I remember 2020 was filming me one morning. It was 3 below zero. There was icicles hanging off my beard, and they were asking me, how did I feel right now? And, what do I want to tell them, how I felt right now? But that's the game. And you got to stay focused. You got to stay in the house. And I promote that today big time. And listen, we all have skeletons, and hopefully you can get them addressed by some of the great works of book writing, therapy, and people's stories. And I was blessed to put the booze down April 21st, 1988, and I have been clean and sober since, and I have learned about those skeletons and flaws, and I've been able to slowly turn them around and help them to alleviate myself of that pain, and to grow up and to face life and to get up to the bat and, take the risk of striking out, but learning along the way.
Wow. Well, a lot of my patients that I work with, they always talk about, something triggered. They hit what they call their bottom, their rock bottom. Did you have that kind of an experience where it was something, whether it was physical or emotional or financial or whatever, did you have an occurrence that said, hey, I've got to stop or it's over?
Well, hey, listen, it was Groundhog Day every day. And listen, I tell people today, spend a half an hour and write down what it was like the last 3 times you drank or drugged or whatever it is. And what happens at the end of the story? Every time at the end of the story, it's no more fun. So it's over. So now we have to work ourselves through the steps and through different therapies and figure out where we went wrong, what was the fault, and stop blaming people and just accept it and learn to turn the page and move on. Like, time isn't waiting for me. I gotta move. I lost a brother a year and a half ago. He took his kids skiing. My younger brother, 57, came home, had cooked a meal, smoked a cigar. It was on camera. He sat down on the couch. He was dead from an aneurysm. We're afforded with this day, not 3 years from now. So we got to make peace and get going. There's a great opportunity we have that we're given, and we have to take it for everything we can.
Well, that's very insightful, and you know, I hope you didn't hear me, but you made me start chuckling because, you know, so many people that, I mean, it is so accurate. You know, how did the story end? Write it down 3 times, the last 3 times. How does it end? And, you know, I wish.
Here's a better story, Doc.
Okay.
Here's a better story. I got up, I got dressed, I walked down the street, I fell in the hole. I banged my leg up, I got up, went about my day. Next day I got up, I got dressed, I walked down the street, I fell in the hole. I banged up my elbow, went about my day. The next day I got up, got dressed, walked down the street, fell in the hole. And what came about it is I have to find a different way to go. I got to take a different route. I got to change. And that's what it's about, changing, going with the flow. I remember the first time I went to a meeting, I heard somebody say in that meeting, "Can you help me?" And I've been asking that question ever since. And I'm 60 years old, and I fight for my life. I fight for my life. I have a great family. I want to change more. I want to be more intimate. I want to be more loving to my family and to my friends. I want to be more helpful to people. And part is because I grew up in such pain. I know what that pain is and when you're lost. And so I've been afforded to learn all about it. And I get to help people, you know, in different walks of life to look at things differently.
You know, I'm just floored from the wisdom that you're giving, because usually when I talk with people about this, you know, they can't express the process as well as you are, and I'm amazed, and I'm just overwhelmed, man. You're an amazing person, and I know you're sitting there going, "No, I'm just Gerry," but you know, I see everything you've done, and being in front of the camera, people don't understand how much more that intensifies everything and makes it more difficult for you to move forward. And you've got an amazing, amazing story. And I think, like you've already told me, a lot of people can benefit from that. If you had one thing to tell somebody, if somebody just walked up to you and they're still, you know, reeking of alcohol and struggling, what would be the first thing you tell them to do?
Well, they have to want to. You know, I've also worked with a lot of people who are not available to look. A lot of people can't look. They don't want to look at it. And it's not until you look that you can get through it and let it go. I mean, you have to let it go, or else you keep reliving it over and over and over again, the pain, and then you add this pain and that pain. So you have to look at it with somebody else. You don't got to do it alone. You know, write it down, look at it, you know, and then it changes. And then write it down, look at it again, and it changes. And then you become free from it, and you're afforded to experience life at a higher level and to have more hope and more joy. And, you know, listen, at the end of the story, we all die.
That's right.
I want to live now. I want to live my life. I want to enjoy it. I want to be great to my friends. I want to be great to my family. I want to be great to me. And there's a fine line. I used to spend 10 minutes. If you paid me a compliment, I would spend 10 minutes talking you out of it. Today I say thank you. Today I say thank you.
Well, I know I see that at the university with my students. Everybody's taught to take criticism, and nobody's taught to take true compliments. And it's an unfortunate state of our society where the minute somebody compliments somebody, we start making excuses for it. And I think that hurts us on a lot of different levels. But individually and personally, I think it just reinforces that type of mentality that some people get into, that I'm a failure, I might as well just keep drinking.
Right, listen, here's the deal, Doc. I could have been a lot better had I gotten more fights, had I been more aware and paid attention. I could have been better. I could have maybe been a heavyweight champion, but I also could be punch drunk today. I also could be broke today. I could be having a lot of problems with all the wear and tear you make. That's being right. A fighter and a football player. There's a lot of wear and tear. Like when the ball joints go on your car, you change the ball joints.
Mm-hmm.
But in your body, you can't change them. So God saved me from those wars that I could have been in, that I wanted to be in, that I wanted to be better, and brought me here today to be on the phone with you and to tell you my story, and that it's a fight for our lives, and we got a choice every day. Am I going to get on the left side of the bed and fight with my wife, or am I going to get on the right side of the bed and have a great day? And sometimes I got to think about it. Sometimes I got to think of. Sometimes I got to pray about it, and I got to say, please help me with this, because I have my instinct is to fight.
Well, Gerry, you have fought. You just fought in a different way, and
right.
A lot of times the fight's internally. It's inside, and we have to be able to straighten out what's going on. And you are amazing. I wish I could sit down, and I'm gonna recommend all my patients listen to this interview that have these issues, because man, it's so hard to get that across. And you said a couple of key things here today, and the biggest one is you got to realize that you don't want to be there anymore, and you want to change. And
right. We're running out of time.
Exactly.
We're running out of time.
Everybody's story ends the same. We all die, and
right.
It's
what
pretty.
Am I going to give to this world? What do I give to this world?
Exactly. Now, somebody that I look up to greatly, as because we're kind of under a time constraint. My uncle, who's taught me a lot about living and things like that, and kind of been my confidant since my dad died 23 years ago. And he loves you to death, and he had all these questions that he wanted me to ask you, and so I picked one of them, and he wanted to know who hit the hardest out of everybody. I mean, he's like,
my wife.
Was it Charlie Polite? Was it was it Billy Jackson? Who was it?
My wife.
And he'll love that and understand that answer right there.
No, you can tell that the biggest puncher I was in with was George Foreman, and I was in great shape. I hurt him in a body shot in the head, and my trainer, Bill Clancy, wanted me to move for 6, 7, 8 rounds to try him out. But when you're a puncher and you catch somebody, you want to go for the kill. Yes. And I hadn't fought for it, and I got caught with a shot. But if you look on YouTube, George Foreman talking to David Letterman.
Okay.
David Letterman asked him, who is the biggest puncher? And George Foreman said, in your life, you run into 3 big punches. One, Gerry Cooney, Ron Lyle, and a guy by the name of Cleveland Williams. And David Letterman says, you mean Gerry Cooney was the hardest puncher? He said, yes, he was even harder than Joe Frazier. So check that out on YouTube and tell your dad everything is great, and tell him to give me a call sometime. I'd love to say hello. And Ryan has my number. You can take that down and have him give me a call. I'd like to give him a hard time.
Oh, that would be amazing. Thank you so much. And
listen, I'm on SiriusXM Mondays and Fridays, channel 93, Monday and Friday night, the fights. Tune in and check it out. We talk about a lot of different things. We have movie stars, celebrities, football players, baseball players, and a lot of fighters. So tune in, check it out.
Do you have a website or anything that they can follow you that way too as well?
We do. It's all with Facebook, Gerry Cooney, Randy Gooden, Monday and Friday night, the fights. We have Instagram. Okay. Ryan can get a hold of my producer and get all that information. We'll get that to you. Okay.
Awesome. We'll put that up on my website with the audio.
Anytime you want to go a few rounds, bro, I am ready, bro.
Hey, watch out. I'm second degree now, mixed martial arts.
It doesn't matter, bro. When I hit you on the chin with the big hook, it's over,
I'm down.
How old are you?
I am 49.
You're a young man, bro. So, okay, you're on. Let's work it out, bro. Anyway, listen, great to talk to you. Thanks for having me on, Ryan. You too, my brother. And you need me, call me again, okay?
Thank you, Gerry. I appreciate it. Well, that concludes our show for today. We've had an amazing guest, Gerry Cooney. He's a fighter in real life, not just up in the ring, and that's real too, folks. So don't let that fool you. Anyway, so come back next week. We've got another amazing show for everybody. And remember, life is what happens while you're making plans. So buckle up.
Thanks for listening to Mainstream Mental Health Radio with your host, Dr. John Huber. Check us out on social media, Google+, Mainstream Mental Health, Instagram @Mainstream Mental Health, Twitter @Mainstream MENTL, and search for Mainstream Mental Health on Facebook. Please tune in every week to Mainstream Mental Health Radio with your host, Dr. John Huber.